When you picture France's greatest knight, you probably imagine a dashing nobleman, born into privilege, clad in shining armor, and admired by all. But what if I told you that the real hero was nothing like that? Bertrand du Guesclin, the man who would become a legend, was neither noble by birth nor blessed with good looks. In fact, he was the complete opposite, rough, plain, and often called ugly, even by his own family. Yet it was precisely these qualities that set him apart, and made him one of the most formidable warriors of his age. Bertrand was not feared for his appearance or his lineage, but for his mind, a mind as sharp as any sword. He was a master strategist, able to see opportunities where others saw only defeat. His enemies learned to dread his cunning, for he could turn the tide of battle with a single unexpected move. This is the story of the so-called Ugly Knight, a man whose legend would echo through the centuries, not because of his looks, but because he changed the fate of a nation. Bertrand du Guesclin's journey from outcast to hero is a tale of grit, intelligence, and relentless determination. The backdrop was the 100 Years' War, a time of chaos, shifting alliances, and endless bloodshed between France and England. In this brutal world, where only the strongest survived, Bertrand clawed his way up from total obscurity. He was born into a minor Breton family, far from the centers of power, and had to fight for every scrap of respect he earned. As a child, Bertrand was mocked relentlessly. His peers called him names, laughed at his rough features, and dismissed him as a nobody. He was never supposed to be a hero. He was the boy everyone underestimated, the one left out of the games, the one who trained alone with a wooden sword, while others jeered. But Bertrand was different. He didn't care about the rules of chivalry or the expectations of the nobility. He learned to fight dirty, to use the land and the shadows to his advantage. While other knights boasted of honor, Bertrand focused on victory, no matter how unconventional his methods. He became a master of guerrilla tactics, studying the terrain, listening to scouts, and always staying one step ahead of his enemies. He knew that brute strength alone wouldn't win wars. He needed to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast those who stood in his way. While the English armies marched in perfect formation, their armor gleaming in the sun, confident in their numbers and their discipline, Bertrand's men became ghosts in the night. They hid in forests, struck under the cover of darkness, and vanished before dawn. His enemies never knew where he would strike next, and that uncertainty was his greatest weapon. He flipped the rules of war on their head. Every weakness, his lack of noble birth, his rough appearance, his small numbers, became a weapon in his hands. He used deception, surprise, and the element of fear to keep his enemies off balance. At the Battle of Cocherel, Bertrand faced overwhelming odds. Outnumbered and outgunned, he refused to give in. Instead, he orchestrated a brilliant ruse. He ordered his troops to fake a retreat, drawing the enemy in and making them believe victory was within their grasp. Then, at the perfect moment, he unleashed a devastating surprise attack. The enemy, caught off guard and overextended, was crushed. It was a rout so complete that it changed the course of the war. For this victory, Bertrand was knighted on the battlefield itself, a rare and extraordinary honor. In that moment, the boy who had been mocked and dismissed became a symbol of hope for all of France. But his journey was far from over. Bertrand was captured twice by his enemies, and each time his ransom was paid, not just by his family but by kings and nobles who recognized his value. He became so important that even his captors hesitated to harm him, knowing that his absence would tip the balance of power. Imagine being so respected, so feared, that even your enemies would rather see you ransomed than risk the consequences of your death. Bertrand's reputation grew with every battle, every escape, every impossible victory. Eventually, Bertrand rose to the highest military rank in France, Constable of France, commander of all the king's armies. He redefined what it meant to be a leader, inspiring loyalty in his men and terror in his foes. His tactics would shape the future of warfare for generations. He trained his soldiers to think like him, to use their wits, to adapt, to never fight fair when the odds were against them. Under his command, the French army became a force to be reckoned with, turning the tide of the war. And when Bertrand du Guesclin finally died, it wasn't just his countrymen who mourned him. Even his enemies paid their respects, recognizing that they had faced not just a warrior, but a legend. So the next time you think that heroes have to look the part, or that greatness is reserved for the privileged, remember Bertrand du Guesclin. He proved that true strength comes from within, and that the greatest heroes are often the ones no one expects. The so-called Ugly Knight, who outsmarted empires, defied expectations, and changed history forever. So ask yourself, what could you achieve if you refused to let others define your worth? What would you do if no one believed in you, but you believed in yourself?